You know, I grew up in a Western family. My dad rodeoed professionally. I grew up on a ranch, so I've been wearing hats and boots since I can remember. Tony Lama was the most sought-after company to work in the Western industry there, and I went to work for them, traveling the state of Wyoming and Bailey hats in Wyoming. Before Urban Cowboy, you know, I was probably selling $1.5 million worth, 1.2 and about $300,000 worth of leather products in Wyoming. And I think at that time when Southern California was doing 400,000, after Urban Cowboy come through, they were doing $2 million, and I was having trouble getting boots to do my $1.5 million. Yeah. Well, it's very, very hard to find a good hat, but even harder to find somebody that could shape it, you know. And when I was rodeoing, when we'd come down to Houston, we would go to Gary's American Hat Store, and being from the Northwest, you know, you would ask, who can shape a hat here? Or even at some of the other stores. Well, you know, in the bigger box stores, they go, the hat shaper's not here, but you know, that guy shining shoes does a pretty good job. Or you'd be at a store and they would start shaping your hat, and finally you'd take it away from them and go home and get on a tea kettle and shape your hat. So I always envisioned a place like Gary's American Hat Store where you walked in and you go, I want that crown and I want that brim. And the professional shapers would just shape it up, hand it to you, it'd be perfect. Well, I'd always wore hats, and having worked for Bailey early on and stuff, so, you know, my whole wardrobe was made up of hat and boot. You know, I figured if you had a really nice hat on and a good pair of boots, anything else was just an accessory with that.
That's Keith Maddox. He passed away a month ago, September the 4th. Celebration of Life will be tomorrow. The historic Cowtown Coliseum in the Fort Worth Stockyards. Keith Maddox, 74 years young, the day that he went to be with the Lord. And joining us is a gentleman who knew Keith probably as well as anybody did, Keith Mundee from the American Hat Company. And Keith, tomorrow, we know how many people touched the lives and how many people's lives Keith Maddox touched. He loved kids. He loved high school and junior rodeo. He loved the Western way of life. And you've been telling Amy and I, while we've been watching this and discussing him a little bit, maybe one of the most positive people anybody would ever have the right to know.
Absolutely. He was always positive, even when we were faced with challenges at the factory. I'll never forget one day we had an unexpected expenditure of $200,000, and I called him. He was in Arizona at the time, and I anticipated that he would be upset. And I said, we're going to have to spend $200,000. We just got to do it. And he said, you know, just remember, he said, it's never as good as you think it is, and it's never as bad as it seems. In the end, it's nothing but a thing.
Wow.
And so that's what he did, and we, you know, like anything, you got through that obstacle, and we're, you know, thriving today. I
looked back through the history of Mr. Maddox's life, and there, you know, he's from Idaho originally, was born in Idaho, had a lot of roots in the Pacific Northwest. He made the comment on the package that we just watched about how he was selling boots and hats in Wyoming and doing, at that time, what I think was a pretty brisk business, selling $1 million and $1.5 million worth of merchandise at that time in his life.
Yeah. When he started with a hire boot company, and he's always got funny stories about that. He'd go in and say, I'm with the hire boot company, and they'd say, how much higher can they be? I mean, you know, and then he did, when he went to work for Tony Lama, that was where he really, really thrived. I mean, he's got copies of checks on his wall that, you know, $30,000 for a week commission at Tony Lama back in the day. They all went out and bought Bill Blass blue Lincoln Continentals one day. You know, all the sales reps for Tony Lama. When Justin started coming on a little strong, they thought, well, we'll put them guys in their place and we'll go buy these Lincoln Continentals. And they did, and they, you know, they wore suits, and that's how they traveled, and they lived large.
I'm Steve Kenyon along with Amy Wilson. We are here at the studios of the Cowboy Channel on Rural Radio, Sirius XM Channel 147, and on the Cowboy Channel. Services for Keith Maddox will be tomorrow. Keith Mundee's joining us from the American Hat Company. And Keith, before we go to a break here in a few seconds, I just can't imagine that there is not going to be a standing room only crowd tomorrow at the Cowtown Coliseum to remember that gentleman's life.
Yeah, we anticipate it's going to be a pretty big crowd. We've got a lot of Rancheros Visitadores coming in. We've got a lot of Tejas Vaqueros coming in, Verde Vaqueros. Those were three of the big riding groups that he was involved with, and those guys were all friends and brothers of his. So we've got a lot of people coming from out of town. We've got about 180 people coming from the factory. He'd probably be mad at us because we're closing down the factory on a Friday, but
Well,
that's Susan's call, not mine. So
yeah, he didn't want a funeral. He wanted a celebration.
you want a celebration? Yeah.
We're going to talk more with Keith Maddox about Keith Mundee about Keith Maddox's life coming up. You're watching and listening to Western Sports Roundup on Rural Radio and on the Cowboy Channel with Amy Wilson. I'm Steve Kenyon. We'll be right back.
Keith Maddox here with American Hats. While you're wintering down here now, bought your house, tell us why you like to rope at Dynamite Arena.
Well, look at this weather. I get giddy when I come here. I just left Texas. It's going to be like 19 degrees tomorrow in Bowie, Texas. So, yeah, why wouldn't you?
Why would we want to be here? You got your daughter.
Yes, Mercedes.
That's Keith Maddox, and Keith Mundee sitting here next to me from the American Hat Company. And you watch that video, and you just got this big smile on your face. That was the essence of Keith Maddox right there, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. He hated to be cold. A lot of
Yeah.
people knew that. So that puffer coat, I referred to that as your security blanket. And I'd ask him, even if it was 90 degrees, you got your security blanket? He goes, I got it right here. It's in my bag. So he took that puffer coat everywhere. That's what he called it, my puffer coat.
I want to talk about something that's been set up in memory of Keith. And along with the American Hat Company, in lieu of flowers, a scholarship has been set up through the National High School Rodeo Association in memory of Keith Maddox. Keith Maddox Scholarship Fund. You can make a check out to the NHRA. There are the details. He loved youth rodeo. He loved junior rodeo. He loved high school rodeo.
Yes, he did. That was our thing. That was what we wanted to. When I came in there, he said, we can't do it all, but what's the most important thing we can do? And it was high school rodeo. If you think about it, a rancher wants to brand calves, so that's what we're doing is branding calves. But we establish relationships, not just with the kids, but with their parents.
Right.
And those are the things that mean the most to him and to me, is those relationships that we have with those kids. And then you get to watch them, grow up and succeed. And even if they don't stay in the world of rodeo, but they go on to do other things, it's still pretty rewarding.
Amy, all the time that we spent hosting a radio show together, we interviewed Keith, I don't know how many times,
Right.
from the high school finals, the junior high finals, and that's a discussion we had a lot.
Yeah, for sure. So as I was reading Keith's life story and a lot of the hardships that he overcame, and then I saw a couple of quotes. One was, someone asked me one time if I ever had a bad day. No, but I had a bad 15 minutes one time. And then the other is, try one more time. If you never give up, you cannot be beaten.
That's right.
And that really sums up what his life was like. Elaborate on that a little bit.
Well, that was his theme. I mean, he just said, if you don't give up, they can't beat you no matter what. And we had a fire after he had bought the company. A fire had come through Bowie, Texas, and he lost $13.5 million of raw inventory. And so at that point, he went all in. His retirement savings, his second mortgage on his house. He borrowed money to make sure that all the employees got paid and kept going. A lesser man would have given up at that point for sure. Mm-hmm. But I wasn't there. But I envisioned that he just tilted his hat back on his head a little bit, put his cards in the middle, and he says, I'm going to bet it all. I bet it all on American Hat Company. He did, and he won big. So that was him, the true American cowboy.
Yeah. When you first got to know him, did you immediately know this was a guy whose attitude and whose life story I want to get to know more of?
Sure, absolutely. He mastered, and I mean mastered, the law of attraction. He mastered the law of attraction. He knew that whatever you put out is what you attract, and so he knew all that stuff. And he paid attention. He read books. He was a big reader, but that was his thing. And he had a zest for life, an insatiable zest for life. He had the intangible it factor. I don't know what it is, but I know it when I see it. I can't explain it, but I know it when I see it. And so people were drawn to him. Everybody wanted to sit at his table because that's where all the laughs were going to be. That was going to be the fun table.
I didn't know this. He was Chris Ledoux's college roommate.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. And so, one of the jokes, with him is he says, if I have to listen to another Chris Ledoux song, I'm a punch in the throat. You know, he loved Chris Ledoux, but he had heard all those songs 150 times. Yeah, yeah.
He got to hear them before they were cassettes getting
That's
sold
right.
out of the truck.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Tomorrow in Fort Worth at the Cowtown Coliseum, services will take place for Keith Maddox from the American Hat Company. There is a scholarship that's been set up in Keith's name for the National High School Rodeo Association. And as we get ready to say goodbye to you this afternoon on Western Sports Roundup, let me say thank you to Keith Mundee from the American Hat Company for joining us. There's a young man who's an American Hat Company ambassador named Blaze Fallis, who has an opportunity to take you out and say goodbye.
Hey, Mr. Keith Max, I've been praying for you and your family really hard. And thank you for letting me be on the American Hat family for all these years. And thank you for supporting me. And thank you for doing everything you've done. And I love you. I miss you.